Hello and welcome, and thanks for joining us for this edition of Scope. Villages situated on the lowlands of Ralwana LLG in Kokopot District, East New Britain Province, are faced with the imminent threat of being swept away to sea by flash floods or buried alive by continuous soil erosion and landslides from heavy rains. The problem has worsened over the past 2 to 3 decades due to continuous government neglect and the lack of proper intervention plan to mitigate the effects of climate change, which is real in the province.
Government neglect seems to be the very reason why villages along the Kokopot-Rabaul Road are at risk of landslides from heavy rains. The worst affected are villages from Raburua, Bitatita, Nguvalian, Barawon, Yelakua, Ralwana, Ranguna and Karavi. John Robin is from Ranguna village and he's lived there his whole life. He's an outspoken village elder and a strong advocate for much-needed government infrastructure service such as roads, bridges, drainage and clean, safe water wells for the people. He admitted it is a completely new world compared to the past 50 years. Robin said the government's Look North policy had negatively impacted on the well-being of his people of Ralwana LLG, including the no compensation policy in the last 26 years. Today, this is compounded by the effects of climate change.
I was living here about 30 years ago. Recently, I moved out in 2018. I moved out of here because of the disaster that came down. In the early days, the government has started a policy called no compensation policy. This policy, it's only guiding the government of development, do more development, and then forgetting that the rubbish that they try to guide ends up here now, 20 years later. Now you can see the diverse. This water was diverted here, and now you see the damage here. I have very small bits in the waterfront. I have about 0.4 of an hectare. Now I got 10 hectares here in the waterfront because of the diversity caused by the flood. There is no drainage on the road to guide the water to where it's supposed to go. Now we have Ranguna is diverse, Karavi is also facing the same, of Punadir coming down. And if the valley only contribute to one valley, we lost everything, the road also. Every night, about 80 to 60 people come down.
Robin reflects back to the happier days where his people were free to enjoy gardening, fishing and other social activities without the imminent threat of their villages being washed away by flash floods and soil erosions and the government's failure to seek local knowledge on how to deal with the current situation.
The policy from the provincial government must stop. It must stop and look at other venues. You look at how they build the road. There is no drainage on the road to guide the water to where it's supposed to go. Now we have Ranguna is diverse, Karavi is also facing the same, of Punadir coming down. And if the valley only contribute to one valley, we lost everything, the road also.
John Robin emotionally expresses himself, recalling the government's engagement of Curtin Brothers to rebuild the Kokopot-Rabaul Road, which included a 9 million kina bridge built at the Ranguna floodway section, only to be buried within months. A total waste of public funds.
Local knowledge are more important to guide the project. Any project that comes here, it must have to be guided by the local knowledge. Because if you do it yourself and you go against me, you won't see the worth of that money that you're spending here. No one believes in nature here. When I was getting a bit upset with the engineer, they told me that we just been directed to do it. And I said, okay, who directed you to do it? You should listen to us. And we will tell you how it works. Now to a big bridge was done by the government in 2006. Today, the bridge is sitting 30 feet below. We are not worried about the bridge, but we are worrying about our homes. Because there's a lot of things that we're supposed to do, we need to do it. So I have to think backward how it happened in the beginning. I cannot talk anymore. But if nothing is going to develop, then nobody will listen. And my people keep on crying for service. What is service? What is service? But sorry it happened this way. I think it's because of, I've seen a movie, the Chinese people really tell us something very bad, and now we are reaping the benefit of those past ministers and past government. And we are going to cry this way because we've been bought off by people. We've been bought off by whites. It's not fair.
Alois Roro is John Robin's second generation. He also gives a personal account of his experience growing up at the Ranguna floodway.
Mipla blo Ranguna where this la floodi voklo bagarapi mipla. So mimas also mamas yes pinis mipla kisim time government ino luklo mipla. Em bagarapi mol good plan ambis blo mipla ivanol garden kai blo mipla na disla all house blo mipla. Rent time mipla kisim time tu na time sun time tu mipla kisim time em tu pla season one time or disaster saya kamo sem. Bagarapi molau sol sem lo Ranguna, igol sem lo Malapau Junction lo side lo gol sem lo Kuradu lo side lo Roluan na gol sem lo Malapau lo Balnataman. Na ol sem lo Karavitu em olikisem bagarap long up lo flood.
In the meantime, the villagers along the Kokopo-Rabaul Road continue to wait in anticipation for the government. Their livelihood is being threatened every time the heavy rains come.
When we come back, Environment Minister strategizes to address climate change and resettle Carteret Islanders. Welcome back. Climate change is affecting the world and has reached the shores of Papua New Guinea, and political leaders are not standing by doing nothing. Recently, Minister for Environment Conservation and Climate Change, Wera Mori, called a press conference just after the suspension of the last parliament sitting to discuss urgent strategies to mitigate against the effects of climate change in the region.
Minister for Environment, Conservation and Climate Change, Wera Mori, called the climate change press conference to firstly discuss what a number of parliamentarians had seen of the effects of climate change and rising temperatures when they visited Bougainville recently. Making reference to the suspension of Parliament due to COVID-19, Minister Mori said COVID-19 is a consequence of climate change.
Bougainville became the first victim of climate change. And of course, apart from we losing the Carteret Island, the rise in COVID-19 is also a consequence of climate change. Both may not be seem to be remotely related, may not be related, but they're remotely related. On the part of Bougainville, we want to demonstrate to you that how the impact of climate change, the rise in temperatures and sea level rising, gave rise to a lot of detrimental consequences.
Minister Mori said one of the effects of the climate change in the autonomous region of Bougainville is the loss of Carteret Island, and the other is the rise of volume of water in the sea. The ocean becomes agitated and starts to wash away the coastlines. He indicated on the GIS map that in the last 45 years, 300 meters of land in front of Amon village along the west coast, Torokina district, had been washed away.
So what we will do, we're not going to make up the distance. If you can get the scale rule, and you measure the distance from there, from here to there. Okay, in meters. That's about exactly 333 meters. You'll understand that. So what does the 333 reflects? All these 333 meters from the shoreline has been washed away. This is the practical reality of Bougainville.
The GIS map on screen shows the difference of distance from a boat being anchored out on the sea to the shoreline in the 1980 to 1982 and the present. Exactly 333 meters of the coastline had disappeared. Minister Mori is serious about the effects of climate change in Bougainville and is determined to do something about it. He noted the fate of Carteret Islands being sucked under by rising sea waters, destroying livelihoods and displacing its inhabitants. Mori gave a geological view of the Carteret Island as an atoll, a group of islands set on reefs on the fringe of a very deep lagoon.
Many of these islands now, you've got the impact of the waves. Some have been eroded away, and also at the same time too, because they are low lying, it has been washed away. So when you have the seawater coming in, it sinks in, it soaks into the sand, and where they're planting taro, the content of salt increases.
He explained that when the content of salt increases, it also impacts the growth of the taro. So the people lose their crops, and this becomes an issue of food security.
I want you people to, us to take note that we have refugees from these islands here. Now, the thing about these people is that, you see, when you take them away from the home of the comfort zone, it becomes a problem to them. It gives them psychological, issues, arises. And so I will be, and Minister, I'm going to seek cabinet assistance of 2 million kina.
He said he will be seeking to settle those internally displaced people who are already in Tinputs and Soano. Minister Mori moved on to raise concerns about the devastations caused by the Panguna mine and the obligation to correct the damages done to the environment. He said in the event that Autonomous Region of Bougainville decides to reopen the mine, they have to make sure that all sediments from the past operation must be removed.
Whoever developer comes in, must put in a program where they would revegetate this. All of this, pile of tailings, rubbish from the mine coming down this way. So we have I will, in my capacity as the Minister for Environment, as soon as the Autonomous Region of Bougainville gives me the okay, I will issue a permit for a cleanup permit, because we have to allow the people of Bougainville on a clean slate.
He said due to the sediments being led to flow downstream, a lot of people have died. Thus, Mori is firm on the sediments from the previous operation of the Panguna mine to be removed and revegetation to be executed before any other mining activities can eventuate.
After the break, investigations into lay NHC evictions underway. Welcome back to Scope. Dubious dealings within the National Housing Corporation have been conducted unchecked over the years. This has resulted in average Papua New Guineans losing their homes to buyers who were not even tenants of the property in question. The lay evictions publicized by lay media has caught the attention of national leaders who have recently started investigations into the issue.
Poret na mibla mi oli mo pigini na misana lo side staff na all just come to us all na water something will give him put him operation katimol.
You bla uset authorized you bla kam sana play. NHC or uset.
4 families were forcefully moved out of their homes on Tuesday, 23rd of March. The residents of Cormorant Street at Lay's Kasawari Road was subjected to intimidation by the National Housing Corporation officials and a private security firm. NHC staff and 2 vehicles loaded with security guards armed with bush knives went into the NHC homes and forcefully moved out personal property as well as chopped down plants surrounding the houses, all the while saying they had received instructions from Port Moresby. Prior to the eviction, the tenants said they received a letter telling them they only had 7 days to vacate the property. Tamara Yassi is the daughter of one of the lessees. Her dad was in Port Moresby when they were forced out of the home they had occupied for 6 years.
So me no come outside. Me pack my bag, do me head stop, no come outside and Naraplamane Housing Commission one me office. I am come to him, she bush knife name just cut him so got a flower. So I'm cutting me come outside na me talk no. And me plant work na grow me no can cut him it also. But I'm married me at night. I'm just keep on cut him go and I'm go finish him lap side. And then Narapla come she bush knife blow me head. One pla workman Housing Commission too. I'm start cutting the backside, I'm cutting Kamosem, and then no cutting Guanta Posem. And what a santi no cutting me. So me hard to make on the santi and picking it to one time, so me just move out as one. But all cargo no something to me, by force or going to Narausim. No, I'm good like notice or come give me plat too. Like normally I'm process also give me 1 month, and then about 21 days, being 7 days na evictions come up. So me plan no be any talk or give him them evictions come up. But them will come give me plus 7 days. Within 7 days, I'll just rush me plan or pick him or something and move out. No at police too. Oxid Lamadep security service at 2 placar. Oximol come no just march into a house or let or by force or something come outside.
Irene Naramen Messi is the wife of a sheriff at the Lake Courthouse. They had initially taken out a restraining order against getting evicted from the house that was initially leased to her husband's late mother. After amending the name of the lessee, the family paid a portion of the arrears.
So outstanding bills so been giving me plan na mi pla go straight in name pinis na mi pla paying some pla bills go inside auto bam pla straight in tenancy agreement form na bam pla give you plan. So me pla pay some money go inside 1,000 kina me pla bin give lo tenancy agreement form. So Andrew agui and bin since money 1,000 kina na am no even making one pla tenancy agreement form na give me pla lo that's a proper way lo bam pla bien in this la way lo pay more bills lo houses. Na me pla wait go na nothing come lo hand lo me pla. So me pla wait ken me pla go ken na give one pla money ken lo Matthew Limu lawyer housing commission. Now still me pla wait yet lo tenancy agreement form na me pla working good something or say professional. Now me pla wait is so long come until all no even working 1% something. Now me pla go come na me pla man me go 80 pay some bills. Now me pla or come back no kisi me pla na me pla go lo court arrest the master. Me pla go lo court go inside lo courtroom or dismiss is a case. No to you pla go straight outside. Ako mi pla come outside and say more give me pla court order na to give me pla sen. Tambulo all housing commission ba kam evict you pla. Court order blo mi tu pla em stop it. Na lawyer blo housing commission em sabe. Na lawyer blo mi tu pla tu em sabe lo disla case blo mi tu pla. Na whether how na all come na give me pla disla 7 days when a notice ta solo evict mi pla na mi pla to ki molo sen. Order blo mi pla em stop lo court order bla stop na you plan na pla kay victim pla na lawyer bla housing commission em talking mall officers blame mo say you plan ko go victim Naramen Messi no can go victim Naramen Messi because em ga court order blame em stop na the officers they all know are one pla talk blo just la lawyer bla housing commission na all come na all just come threatening me pla one time all bush knife tramontina knife ya na kati of flowers lo front blouse na toki mi plos rausi mo kata santi ka mauset na ol piginin blomin to ino traba pigini ol lili piginin ol poret na panic na ogi kain na mi plato ko emorai mi plare you plana rausi mo.
NHC Regional Manager Andrew Agui told Lay Media on March 27 that a directive was received from the management in Port Moresby to evict the tenants.
Like I said, there's substantial amount in liabilities to KC2 by previous regime, and it's the prerogative of the management whether we sell or we lease it out again. It's administrative function of the National Housing Corporation, and I don't have the authority to say whether we sell or we release again to lease out again. Basically, the previous management has sold some properties to KC2, and you would be aware of all those properties. Yeah, the number of properties were sold to KC2, and to date, KC2 has not taken any vacant possession. They parted with their money. They paid. They've got official receipts, bank checks, everything done. But to date, they have not obtained vacant possession. They have not moved into the properties. That's for about 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Augui further denied receiving payment for tenancy agreement forms.
These tenancy agreement forms are not for sale. But our condition is for a tenant to move in, he or her has to pay 2 fortnights rent in advance, plus the security bond deposit. That's the normal lease agreement with all real estate companies as such. In regard to the 1,000, I deny that. And for that matter, I got suspended thereafter. And they had all these times to come forward to the whoever's in the office to try to sort out their tenancy. And I believe they must have seen Mr. Lim a couple of times to sort out the tenancy agreement. So like I said, if they have evidence, they can put it in writing, come to the office. Our office is always open for us to discuss and find a way forward in all these situations.
The eviction of long-time tenants to make way for new buyers is in breach of the National Housing Corporation Act 1990, Section 38, subsection 1, which states, after a tenancy agreement has been in force for 2 years between the corporation and a tenant, the corporation may, in its discretion, offer to A, the tenant, or B, the spouse, widow, or widower of the tenant, or C, the tenant and his spouse as joint tenants, or D, the tenant and his next of kin, an option to purchase the dwelling. After years of evictions and tenants fighting for their homes in court, a sliver of hope shone through in the form of a special parliamentary committee on public sector reform inquiry, headed by Chair of the committee, Gary Jufa. The inquiry into the National Housing Corporation dealings has already started, with NHC Acting Managing Director Elizabeth Bowada giving her reports as well as the lay NHC officers. Furthermore, in a recent joint press conference, Housing Minister Justin Kachenko said Bowada did not sanction the evictions in lay.
They did it without any consultation or consent of the Managing Director or my office. This has been done on very suspicious circumstances for the self-gain of these officers and needs to be fully investigated.
Kachenko said the 2 lay officers will be suspended while an investigation is conducted.
And that ends another episode of Scope, a kind reminder to apply simple measures to prevent the transmission of the coronavirus. Regularly wash your hands with soap and water, cough or sneeze into your elbow, and exercise social distancing. If you are feeling sick, please stay at home. You can also call the COVID-19 hotline number for more information or assistance.